Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. This week we are going to be talking about the pros and the cons of living in a tiny house as opposed to a mobile home. Now, most of you guys know that I got this land about a year and a half ago, and I've been living in the mobile home ever since due to some problems that I had with transport and getting my tiny house set up. So I basically moved everything out into this mobile home, and it has been a huge difference, a huge lifestyle change for me ever since, because I was used to living tiny. So we're going to go through those things. There are about 10 things I want to talk about, so let's get to those now. All right, so number one is I realized that there is a whole lot more to clean. Now, of course, this is going to be something that is inevitable. You're going to have to clean more in a bigger house, but I don't like it. It's a con to me. I don't want to be cleaning all of this space. When I was living in the tiny house, it's just one room. It's 224 square feet. There's only so much that can get dirty. There's not a lot of rooms. Like, I have 7 rooms to clean in this house, so it is a huge difference. I don't like it. Now, mind you, at this point, it's been about 5 months since I've had my tiny house on Airbnb, and I've already had 74 guests. So I've cleaned the house 74 times, the tiny house, and it's really easy to clean. It's just super easy to go through the whole thing. This house takes a little bit more time, so yeah, that is a con about living in the mobile home. Number 2, this mobile home is a whole lot more area to cool and heat. I did not have that space to heat and cool in my tiny house. It's only 224 square feet. So now imagine what the bills are like. The bills are a lot more in this mobile home. I'm paying almost up to $200. Now, this is including the tiny house also, but the tiny house alone, my bill was about $60, so $60 to $80 in electric. So it's a lot more trying to heat this big space. It is only a single wide, but still bigger space to heat, bigger bills. Number 3 is there is a lot more area to hoard stuff in this mobile home. Like, there is more countertops, there's more corners, there's more counters, cabinets. In a tiny home, I only had that 224 square feet to put all of my stuff, so there wasn't really a lot of space to hoard stuff. That was one of the reasons why I did go tiny, but now I am realizing that being in this mobile home now and being able to hoard more stuff, my hoarder mindset is back. And I just want to collect and save stuff. Oh, I've got room for it, so I'll put it over here. Or it can wait over here until I'm ready for it. Like, it has space to wait. So in the tiny house, you couldn't do that. And that is a huge difference. I recently went through about 7 different drawers of junk. It was like they were all junk drawers. And because I had saved them up, when you have the room to do that, you just place it in a drawer, say I'll get back to it later, and then end up having to organize it later on, which is fine, which is what I did. But in a tiny house, you cannot do that. And I've been living in this mobile home, so it's been happening again. I've been noticing it. Number 4, the cats have more space. Now, when we were living in the tiny house, there was only 3 cats at the time. My new cat, Charlie, has not seen the inside of my tiny house, so he has not gotten to use the litter box area. He's not gotten to use the ladder going up to the cat loft. He's not gotten to use the cat walk. But in this house, the cats do have a lot more space to run. There are longer, wider rooms for them to play in. The tiny house is only a little rectangle, so they had their zooming spaces. Like, they would go in the bathroom, to the hall, up the ladder, down the catwalk, down the stairs. Like they had their spaces where they did get their exercise. But in here, there's like double and triple that space. Soon I want to be building a catio for them outside of the tiny house, outside their cat loft, and hopefully that will also give them more running room and space once we move back into the tiny house. Number 5, I am using a lot more water in this mobile home than I did, say, in my tiny house. In my tiny house, I had a compost toilet, which means it did not have any water usage, so there was no flushing daily or flushing every time you went to the bathroom. The shower is also another thing that uses a lot of water. In this mobile home, I don't exactly know how big the water heater is, but in the tiny house, it's only a 19-gallon water heater. There was only 7 to 9 minutes of hot water, so it was in and out. And now that this hot water lasts for like a half an hour, I can, like, especially in the winter if it's cold, I can stay in there longer, take longer showers, but I did not have that luxury in the tiny house. I'm gonna say that's kind of a pro, but it's also a con because I am using more water. It means I've got to pay for it, and it's wasting more water. Kind of defeats the purpose of, I want it to go tiny, so, and that's one reason why I don't like living in this mobile home, is because I start to get more relaxed on the things that I wanted to be better at. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna move back in, but until then, I kind of feel like this is, I don't know, luxury. I'm not used to this living in this big space. And lastly, the washer and dryer. I do have the washer and dryer in the hallway, and I do my laundry once a week. And I do say 2 more loads of laundry because I have to do the Airbnbs. So each day that an Airbnb guest stays, I do 2 loads of laundry. So that's a lot more water that's going on in this mobile home as opposed to the tiny home. I did have a washer dryer combo in the tiny house, but I ended up selling it because I just got rid of it, problems with it and stuff, and it took way too long to dry. I was no longer using that water source. Using it in here, I'm just using a lot more water in this mobile home. Number 6, it is more comfortable for guests in this mobile home. Now, when I was living in my tiny house and I had guests over, they would have to sit on the floor, they would have to sit on the stairs, they would have to sit on a step. But in this mobile home, I do have a futon that people can sit on, but there's more room to, say, mingle. There wasn't that much space in the tiny house to do that. You were either into a ladder or just having to sit somewhere that wasn't so comfortable. I had a couch bed storage in there, and that was very hard seating. I had like storage on there because I didn't have much storage. Now, once I moved back into the tiny house and I do have guests, my whole purpose of that was, like, living in a tiny house was to be outside more, including when guests come over, so there'll be outdoor seating. I'll end up building a deck and we can all hang outside and be less inside the house where we're going to need that room anyway. Number 7, it is more space for my herbal business. In my tiny house, I had an 8x8 office. And that was basically all of my office stuff, all of my business stuff. Now in this mobile home, I have quadrupled the space. There are 4 times the 8x8 area that I can work in. It just gives me more wall room, it gives me more floor room, and I'm going up vertically. I want to put stuff in shelves, on cabinets, and utilize all that space that I have now in here. That was my main thing about getting a community house with, say, a living room with an area that I could work. I was going to remodel it, and that's exactly what I did. The rest of the house is going to become a guest house. I'm glad I took that office out of my tiny house because, with my RV guests coming in, can you imagine us all standing in there and them trying to shop in an 8x8 office? It is a lot better when people come in here. It's a lot better for me working. Really like that change. That's a big pro, getting my office out of the tiny house and putting it in here. Number 8. There is way more things to fix if something goes wrong because there's just way more space. So if something happens to the wall, a leak, there's just more square footage that something can go wrong. There are more things placed in the house, so something can go wrong on those things. Like a lot more things can be stored in here, so that means a lot more things can go wrong. In a tiny house, there is only so much places that you can put things. There's only so much things that can break. Number 9. So in this mobile home, there is way more storage. You can put a lot of things in a lot of places. again, there was not a lot of room in my tiny house to store stuff. Now this includes multiple rooms, so I have like 7 different rooms, 6 different areas, 7 different areas that I can put stuff in. In the tiny house, there was only, 224 square feet where you can put stuff. Only so many cabinets, only so much space. In this big space, there's way more areas and spaces to put stuff. And this differs from hoarding stuff, because that's me giving myself an excuse, the space to hoard stuff. But in general, there's a lot more space to store stuff, which is convenient in my opinion because of, say, my Airbnb. I had to move all my stuff out of the tiny house. Where was I going to put it? I didn't want to put it in the garage. I wasn't going to put it in my car or in my storage in the tiny house, so this came in handy to store those things when I needed a place to store them. This also goes to the garage. I had to store my tools and my garden tools in there. That was convenient as well. Extra space and giving you that extra space for that storage is convenient, although we may not want it because that's where we end up maybe hoarding stuff. And I'm kind of doing that, but I'm trying to clean stuff up and get rid of stuff so that when I do move back into the tiny house, I'm going back in with the least stuff possible. And number 10, in this mobile home, I am not constantly hitting stuff, hitting my head, bumping my arm, getting bruises and bumps because of there not being so much room. It's so spacious in here that, you can walk past something. There's no ladders in the way. There's no flip down counters in the way. In the tiny house, there's only so much square feet, and I was constantly hitting my head on a beam, or bumping my arm on the ladder, or bumping my hip while moving next to it. There's just a lot of things that happen in the tiny house because there's only so much room. Now add a few people in there and try to mingle and do all that. It's just it's a very tight space, and here it's so spacious. Although this whole space right here is not needed, it's still more comfortable to move about in. I feel that would be a pro, but a big difference because I don't get hurt and bumped up and bruised anymore. There's also no ducking and crouching because I had to duck under rooms. It's a 4-foot loft, so you're constantly having to duck while you sit on the bed, duck while you change the bed, duck. It's just constantly ducking in a tiny house because there's just no room. Eventually, I am going to be moving back into my tiny house, but I have become comfortable living in this mobile home. More, I guess, better reasons than not, but I am starting to realize the reasons for wanting to move back in. It would help me be more eco-friendly and go back to living that lifestyle because it kind of forces you to when you're living in a tiny house. Living in this big space is a lot easier to just let things go. Once I realize that I'm doing it, I gotta kind of draw back and realize, even though I am living in a mobile home, I could still be practicing those things that I want to be practicing. If you guys liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and click the notifications bell so you can receive a notification each time I post a new video, which is every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Not a lot of room to live in, so that's basically, don't put that, something that is gonna be, I don't know the word. Don't put that. In my tiny house, I had a compost toilet where I did not flush any. Don't put any of this. So, don't put that. You fix it, but there was not much to fix. Don't put that.